Lights, camera, action, and welcome back to the Soundtrack Collector. I'm your host, Christopher Spencer, author of Film and Television Soundtracks 1950 to 1979, A Critical History, published by McFarlane & Company. We are wrapping up a series of videos covering the history of science fiction movie soundtracks since the dawn of cinema. Be sure to take a look through my past videos on this topic, each tackling a different period or decade. Since the beginning of this century, the number of sci-fi movies has increased considerably, which means I have to be a lot more selective about what I choose to talk about. For this video, I've had to trim the number considerably to focus mostly on high-profile releases. Let me know if there are any that I've missed in the comments, and be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for notification of future videos. There is more to come on this subject. More about that later. The sci-fi soundtracks of the 2020s continues the 21st century trajectory of blending orchestral and electronic elements to create immersive sonic landscapes. Some of these scores have fallen into common pitfalls: over-reliance on genre, action tropes, lack of distinct melodic themes, excessive electronic textures, and the increased blending of scores with sound design. Despite these criticisms, the decade so far has produced some of sci-fi's most innovative and emotionally resonant soundtracks. First up, let's talk about Tenet, Christopher Nolan's mind-bending, time-inverting sci-fi epic from 2020. Instead of Hans Zimmer, who was busy working on Dune, we get Ludwig Göransson. Honestly, he delivered something just as bold and innovative. His score is a fascinating mix of orchestral power and cutting-edge electronic manipulation. We're talking strings, brass, percussion, classic elements, but layered with distorted synths, heavy processing, and even tracks played forwards and backwards to mirror the film's time inversion concept. One of the wildest things Göransson did was layering over 100 guitar tracks just to create a single sonic texture. That level of experimentation gives Tenet a sound that feels alien yet visceral. The score plays a huge role in shaping the film's chaotic puzzle box narrative. The triplet rhythms keep the tension high, while the reversed audio effects literally make you feel like time is folding in on itself. It's immersive, unsettling, and at times downright overwhelming. Some people found the music too aggressive or even distracting in the film, but as a standalone listen, it's a beast of a soundtrack. Dense, intricate, and full of ingenious techniques. You can definitely hear that Hans Zimmer had an influence on it, but Göransson adds his own minimalist rhythmic flair. Love it or find it grating, there's no denying it's one of the most ambitious sci-fi scores of the 2020s. Speaking of Zimmer, Hans Zimmer's Dune Part 1 soundtrack is nothing short of an auditory odyssey. Released in 2021 alongside Denis Villeneuve's epic adaptation of Frank Herbert's novel, this score doesn't just accompany the film, it builds its world from the ground up. Zimmer went all out, crafting an alien soundscape using everything from manipulated vocals and synthetic textures to custom-built instruments, massive metal percussion rigs, and eerie PVC flutes. Let's not forget the bagpipes, which somehow fit perfectly into the mix. The result is a sound that feels ancient yet futuristic, grounded yet otherworldly, much like Arrakis itself. What makes this score so effective is how it rejects traditional melodies in favor of sheer atmosphere. Zimmer layers sounds like a sculptor, slowly building tension with deep droning textures, echoing chants, and thunderous crescendos. It's as if the music itself is breathing with the desert. Every faction in the film gets its own sonic entity, making the world feel that much more immersive. The soundtrack was universally praised, winning the Academy Award for Best Original Score, and for good reason. It's a masterclass in sonic world building. Some found it overwhelming at times, but honestly, that's part of the Dune experience. Dune isn't just a film you watch, it's a film you feel. And Zimmer's score is a huge part of that. When The Matrix Resurrections hit theaters in 2021, it had some massive shoes to fill, not just in terms of storytelling, but musically as well. The original Matrix trilogy featured Don Davis's bold, avant-garde orchestral work, which became a defining part of its cyberpunk identity. For Resurrections, composers Johnny Klimek and Tom Tykwer took the reins, and while they paid clear homage to Davis's style, especially with that signature horn motif, they also brought in their own flavor. The score blends orchestra, pulsing electronic beats, choir, and even intimate piano moments, creating a mix of familiarity and reinvention. On one hand, the soundtrack does a solid job bridging the gap between the old and the new, maintaining the series' sci-fi energy while introducing fresh themes for Neo and Trinity. The action cues are propulsive, the ambient textures add depth, and the production is crisp. But does it stand out? That's where opinions are split. Some found it a competent, if safe, continuation of the Matrix sound, while others found it lacked the daring, mind-bending quality of Davis's original work. It's technically solid and hits the right beats, but unlike the first film's score, which was breathtaking, Resurrections doesn't quite redefine anything. Still, for fans of The Matrix, hearing those familiar motifs woven into new music is like stepping back into the rabbit hole, just with a slightly different vibe. Lorne Balfe's score for the Tomorrow War is a big, bold, and unapologetically cinematic beast, exactly what you'd expect from a time-traveling alien invasion blockbuster. Released in 2021, this soundtrack doesn't just support the film's high-stakes action, it amplifies it. Balfe blends a full orchestra with heavy electronics, eerie vocalizations, and a thunderous percussive backbone, creating a soundscape that feels both futuristic and ominous. One standout element is the solo cello played by Tina Guo, which adds a haunting emotional depth amidst all the chaos. There are also some unmistakable influences here: Hans Zimmer's Dark Knight trilogy, Steve Jablonsky's Transformers scores, but Balfe still makes it his own with strong thematic content and intricate layering. Where the score really shines is its ability to build tension. Pulsating rhythms, deep brass horns of doom, and unsettling sound effects make the alien war feel visceral and relentless. The music also does a great job of distinguishing between the film's present-day setting and the apocalyptic future, reinforcing the contrast through shifting textures and tones. While some critics pointed out its similarities to other blockbuster scores, most agreed that it's a powerful and immersive work. The main theme in particular stands out, memorable, heroic, and full of urgency. If you're into epic sci-fi action music that hits hard and never lets up, The Tomorrow War delivers. Gustavo Santaolalla's score for Finch, starring Tom Hanks, is a perfect example of how music can elevate a film's emotional core. Released in 2021, Finch is a quieter, more introspective take on the post-apocalyptic genre, and Santaolalla's approach reflects that beautifully. Known for his work on the Last of Us games and films like Brokeback Mountain, he brings his signature mix of minimalism and raw emotion to this soundtrack. The music balances delicate acoustic textures with electronic elements, creating an atmosphere that feels both intimate and vast, mirroring Finch's lonely yet hopeful journey across a ruined Earth. One of the standout features of the score is its use of silence as much as sound. Santaolalla masterfully lets moments breathe, making the music feel organic rather than overwhelming. There's also a recurring heartbeat motif woven throughout, reinforcing the film's themes of survival, companionship, and the fragile nature of humanity. Tina Guo's solo cello and Tori Letzler's ethereal vocals add layers of warmth and melancholy, making Finch's bond with his dog and robot companion all the more poignant. While some critics noted that it echoes other post-apocalyptic scores, most agreed that it's a beautifully crafted, deeply moving piece of work. It's not about bombastic action, it's about the quiet, emotional weight of existence, and Santaolalla absolutely nails it. Nicholas Britell's score for Don't Look Up is as eclectic and unpredictable as the film itself. Released in 2021, Adam McKay's apocalyptic satire juggles absurdity, dark comedy, and existential dread. And Britell's music is right there with it, shifting between orchestral drama, eerie synth textures, and big band jazz like a musical chameleon. It's a score that doesn't just complement the film's chaotic energy, but actively enhances its tonal whiplash. One moment, you're hearing soaring strings, underscoring a moment of scientific discovery. The next, there's a quirky, almost cartoonish cue that makes the whole situation feel ridiculous. Britell even throws in toy pianos, farfisa organs, and hold music-inspired cues to satirize the media circus surrounding the impending doom. What makes the Don't Look Up soundtrack so effective is its ability to highlight the absurd contrast between cold scientific fact and society's refusal to engage with reality. The recurring motifs give the film a sense of cohesion amid its wild tonal shifts, while moments of dissonance and exaggerated musical cues drive home the film's satirical bite. Some critics found parts of the score too on the nose, but considering Don't Look Up is a movie that thrives on making its message loud and clear, that feels pretty intentional. Bertel's work was bold enough to earn him his third Academy Award nomination for Best Original Score, and it's easy to see why. This soundtrack isn't just background music, it's part of the joke, part of the tragedy, and part of what makes the film work. If there was ever a soundtrack that felt like it existed in multiple dimensions at once, it's Everything Everywhere All at Once. Composed by Sun Lux, this 2022 score is a genre-bending, boundary-pushing masterpiece that mirrors the film's chaotic yet deeply emotional journey. Just like the movie hops between universes, the music shapeshifts between orchestral beauty, electronic experimentation, jazz, rock, and straight-up avant-garde madness. Sun Lux doesn't just compose a soundtrack, they built an entire sonic multiverse. From traditional orchestral textures to distorted synths, from Mayan flutes to custom-built foil violins, every sound feels like it's from a different reality. It all weaves together seamlessly. What makes this score so powerful is how it enhances the emotional stakes amid all the absurdity. Hot dog fingers, kung fu fights, talking rocks. Sun Lux grounds the film with recurring themes that tie everything together. Moments of chaos are matched with moments of aching beauty, and the music always knows when to punch you in the gut emotionally. The soundtrack was widely praised for its innovation, earning a well-deserved Academy Award nomination, and it's not hard to see why. This isn't just the score, it's an experience, one that perfectly captures the heart, humor, and existential weight of everything, everywhere, all at once. If there's ever been a film score that makes you laugh, cry, and question the nature of existence all at the same time, it's this one. Michael Giacchino's Jurassic World Dominion score is a mix of old and new, much like the film itself. As the supposed grand finale of the Jurassic saga, the music had to strike a balance between nostalgia and fresh ideas. Giacchino, being no stranger to this franchise, delivered a score that's big, adventurous, and full of dino-sized orchestral power. He brings back John Williams' iconic Jurassic Park theme in just the right moments, but also introduces new motifs, including a theme for Alan Grant, that give the movie its own identity. The orchestration is grand, with sweeping strings, bold brass, and pounding percussion, but Giacchino also works in subtle electronic textures to add modernity to the sound. Where the score succeeds is in its ability to enhance both spectacle and emotion. It captures the wonder and terror of dinosaurs on the loose, while also underscoring the human drama with warmth and depth. The action cues are thrilling, particularly in chase sequences where Giacchino's signature rhythmic intensity shines. However, some critics felt that while the music is technically excellent, it doesn't quite leave the same lasting impression as Williams' original themes. That said, as a conclusion to the Jurassic World trilogy, it does exactly what it needs to: pay homage to the past while giving the new generation of Jurassic fans something exciting to hold on to. If nothing else, it proves that few composers understand the language of blockbuster adventure quite like Michael Giacchino. Stepping into the musical world of Avatar is no small task, but Simon Franklin had some big shoes to fill after the passing of James Horner. With Avatar: The Way of Water, he delivers a score that stays true to the spirit of Horner's original while expanding the sonic landscape of Pandora's oceans. The blend of sweeping orchestral arrangements, ethereal choral work, and electronic textures creates a sound that feels both grand and deeply intimate. Franklin also introduces new instruments inspired by the Na'vi culture, making the world building feel even more immersive. The music captures both the wonder of Pandora's aquatic environments and high-stakes action. all while incorporating Horner's iconic themes in subtle, respectful ways. Where this score truly shines is its emotional depth. The new themes, particularly those tied to family and survival, give weight to the film's central relationships. Franklin leans into atmospheric, layered compositions that enhance the film's sweeping visuals, making Pandora feel even more alive. However, some critics felt that while the music is effective, it doesn't quite reach the unforgettable heights as Horner's original Avatar score. Still, as a continuation of the franchise's musical legacy, it's a worthy successor, expanding on familiar ideas while forging a new path. If the Avatar series is all about evolution, then Franklin's score fits right in, seamlessly blending past and future into something both beautiful and otherworldly. When David Cronenberg returns to body horror, you know the music is going to be just as unsettling as the visuals. Enter Howard Shore, his longtime collaborator, who crafted a score for Crimes of the Future that feels like it seeps into your skin. Unlike some of his more orchestral work on past Cronenberg films, this score leans heavily into atmospheric textures, blending eerie electronic synthesis with moody strings and brass. It's a slow burn, somber, ambient, and at times almost hypnotic, reinforcing the film's themes of transformation, decay, and the fusion of technology with human body. What makes the score so effective is its restraint. Rather than hitting you with loud, jarring horror cues, Shore creates a sense of unease through pulsating tones, muffled bursts of sound, and subtle motifs that creep into the background. It enhances the film's melancholic and introspective moments just as much as it does the grotesque body modifications and surgeries on display. Some critics found the score more compelling as a standalone listen than a traditionally structured soundtrack, but that's kind of the point. It's not here to be a grand hummable theme, it's designed to linger like a phantom pain or a haunting echo of the film's eerie future. If you're looking for a horror score that unsettles without overwhelming, Crimes of the Future delivers in a beautifully disturbing way. Hans Zimmer's score for The Creator is a mesmerizing blend of the organic and the synthetic, much like the film's own meditation on humanity and artificial intelligence. Released in 2023, this soundtrack perfectly captures Gareth Edwards' grand yet intimate sci-fi vision. Zimmer leans heavily into atmospheric world building, fusing sweeping orchestral moments with eerie electronic textures, haunting solo vocals by Stephanie Olmani, and exotic woodwinds played by Pedro Eustache. I'm sure I'm butchering that name. There are clear echoes of Blade Runner in its Vangelis-like synth washes, but Zimmer adds his signature depth, layering minimalist themes with complex emotional swells. The music does a fantastic job of distinguishing the film's different settings, from war-torn landscapes to AI sanctuaries, giving each a unique sonic identity. The score shifts between delicate and thunderous, often using exotic percussion and otherworldly harmonies to highlight the contrast between the film's human characters and its AI-driven future. While some critics noted that it lacks the instantly iconic themes of Zimmer's past work, it's undeniably immersive, wrapping around the film's visuals like a dream. It's a score that doesn't just support the creator's emotional weight, it amplifies it, making every moment in conflict and connection resonate even deeper. Zimmer has done a lot of sci-fi over the years, but here he explores fresh territory, proving once again why he remains one of the genre's most defining composers. Tom Holkenborg, aka Junkie XL, brings his signature bombastic style to Rebel Moon, Zack Snyder's ambitious foray into sci-fi world building. Scoring both Part 1, A Child of Fire, and Part 2, The Scargiver, from 2023 and 2024 respectively, Holkenborg delivers a soundtrack that feels massive in every sense: thundering percussion, sweeping orchestral fills, and deep electronic textures that add grit and urgency. There's the undeniable Dune meets Star Wars influence in the way the score uses exotic percussion and woodwinds to define different cultures and locations, yet it also carries that dark industrial edge Holkenborg is known for. The music does a solid job of heightening the film's rebellion-driven narrative, amplifying the emotional stakes of the heroes and the oppressive force they're up against. Some critics praised its technical execution and the way it integrates with the film's grand visuals, while others felt it lacked the kind of instantly recognizable themes that define other sci-fi epics. That said, Holkenborg's ability to mix organic and synthetic elements gives Rebel Moon a distinct sonic identity. It's raw, heavy, and unapologetically intense. Whether or not it carves out a lasting musical legacy remains to be seen, but as a sonic experience, it absolutely matches the scale of Snyder's sprawling space opera. Chris Bacon's score for 65 is all about atmosphere. Haunting, tense, and sometimes downright eerie. Taking over from Danny Elfman mid-production, Bacon had the challenge of crafting a soundtrack that blended the grand orchestral scope of sci-fi adventure with the primal intensity of a survival thriller. The result is a hybrid score that mixes deep, ominous brass, unsettling electronic textures, and sweeping strings to capture the loneliness and danger of being stranded on prehistoric Earth. Some of Elfman's original ideas reportedly made their way into the final score, but Bacon makes it his own by focusing on slow-building tension and minimalistic layered compositions. While the music effectively underscores the film's themes of survival and isolation, it doesn't necessarily leave a lasting impression. It works well within the film, heightening the contrast between futuristic technology and ancient primeval landscapes, but as a standalone listen, it doesn't break any new ground in the sci-fi genre. Some critics felt it was a bit generic, lacking the kind of memorable motifs that define great adventure scores. That said, in terms of pure tension and mood setting, Bacon delivers exactly what the film needs: an eerie, immersive soundscape that keeps the stakes high from start to finish. It may not roar like a T-Rex, but it definitely keeps you on edge. Jerskin Fendrix's score for Poor Things is as strange, mesmerizing, and unpredictable as the film itself. Yorgos Lanthimos' surreal feminist fable needed a soundtrack that could evolve alongside its protagonist, Bella Baxter, and Fendrix delivered something truly one of a kind. The music starts off with an almost mechanical awkwardness, breathy, pulsating, and unsettling, mirroring Bella's early childhood state. As she grows emotionally and intellectually, the score becomes richer and more complex, shifting from fragmented sounds into sweeping orchestral passages, all while retaining its off-kilter dreamlike quality. It's a rare example of a score that actively transforms with its main character. What makes this soundtrack so effective is its bold experimentation. Fendrix incorporates pipe organs, Uilleann pipes, synthesized breath samples, and even custom-built instruments to create a soundscape that feels both classical and futuristic, as if it belongs to a world just slightly adjacent to our own. It's playful, eerie, and at times overwhelming, just like Bella's journey of self-discovery. Some critics found it challenging as a standalone listen, but in the context of the film, it's a perfect match. The score was widely praised, earning Fendrix a nomination for the Best Original Score at the 96th Academy Awards. If Poor Things is a celebration of liberation, then its music is the chaotic, beautiful, and utterly original sound of a mind breaking free. Naoki Sato's score for Godzilla -1 isn't just music, it's an emotional gut punch. Unlike many modern Godzilla films that lean into bombastic, action-heavy scores, this one takes a more introspective approach, reflecting the film's deep post-war trauma and human struggle. Sato masterfully weaves together long, melancholic string passages with bursts of orchestral fury, creating a soundscape that captures both the horror of Godzilla's destruction and the quiet resilience of those trying to survive. The score strategically integrates Akira Ifukube's iconic Godzilla themes, but rather than leaning on nostalgia, it uses them sparingly, making their arrival feel weighty and earned. Where the soundtrack really shines is in its balance between dread and emotion. The electronic pulses and dissonant harmonies create an atmosphere of relentless tension, while the softer, more reflective moments underscore the human cost of the devastation. Some critics found the score a bit too somber or lacking in instantly memorable themes, but that actually works in its favor. This isn't a triumphant monster movie, it's a war-torn nightmare. Sato's music doesn't just accompany Godzilla Minus One, it deepens its impact, making every moment of grief, fear, and survival hit even harder. It's not just a Godzilla score, it's a human score, and that's what makes it stand out. Hans Zimmer's return to Dune Part 2 was never in question, but the real anticipation was how he would expand upon the already groundbreaking soundscape he crafted for the first film. The result? A score that's even bigger, more intense, and perhaps surprisingly, more melodic. While Part 1 leaned heavily on atmosphere and raw sound design, Part 2 brings a more thematic approach, introducing new motifs while evolving existing ones. The harsh metallic percussion and haunting vocal chants are still there, and there is also a striking new love theme for Paul and Shani, adding an emotional dimension that was less pronounced in the first film. The scale of this soundtrack is immense, perfectly matching the epic battles and shifting power struggles of the story. Zimmer utilizes his signature slow-building crescendos, blending orchestral grandeur with experimental textures, whether it's the eerie guttural chants, processed bagpipes, custom-built instruments that sound like they belong to an alien civilization. While some critics found the love theme a bit simplistic compared to the rest of the score, the overall composition is a masterful evolution of what Zimmer started in Part 1. It doesn't just revisit familiar sounds, it expands them, deepens them, and makes them even more immersive. If Dune is about destiny, war, and survival, then Zimmer's music is its beating heart, pulsing with tension, majesty, and an undeniable sense of fate. Tom Holkenborg, aka Junkie XL, is back, returning to the Mad Max universe with Furiosa. But this time, his score takes a different route. Unlike Fury Road, which was an all-out assault of relentless percussion and wailing guitars, Furiosa is more introspective, focusing on character and atmosphere rather than sheer adrenaline. That's not to say the intensity is gone. Holkenborg still uses pounding drums, distorted electronics, and the occasional gut punch of brass, but the emphasis here is on Furiosa's internal journey. There's haunting quality to the score, reinforced by eerie vocal chants, didgeridoo drones, and the unsettling pulse of a heartbeat motif that runs through the film. One of the most striking elements of this soundtrack is its use of silence. Holkenborg knows when to let the music drop out, making the vast wasteland feel even more isolating. When the action hits, the score roars to life, but it never overwhelms the film's emotional core. Some critics felt it lacked the instantly iconic themes of Fury Road, but that's because it's serving a different kind of story, one about survival, resilience, and the slow burn of revenge. It may not be as in-your-face as its predecessor, but Furiosa's score is a brooding, atmospheric beast in its own right, proving that in a wasteland, sometimes the quietest sounds can be the most powerful. Rafferty's score for The Substance is a sonic fever dream, unsettling, hypnotic, and impossible to ignore. Much like the film's exploration of beauty, identity, and transformation, the music constantly shifts between eerie orchestral passages and pulsating club-inspired electronic beats. The contrast between these styles perfectly mirrors the film's duality, with lush strings representing one reality and distorted synth textures pulling us into the nightmarish side effects of the titular drug. There's a heavy emphasis on sound design, with processed voices, unnerving harmonies, and layered effects blurring the line between music and pure atmosphere. One of the most striking aspects of the score is how it builds tension. The minimalist, dissonant motifs creep in subtly, only to explode into overwhelming, almost suffocating electronic crescendos at key moments. This push and pull heightens the film's psychological horror, making the audience feel trapped in an ever-mutating reality. Some critics found certain elements overwhelming, but that feels intentional. The score is meant to disorient, to unsettle. It's no surprise that its more club-driven tracks gain traction on social media, particularly TikTok, where the film's aesthetic resonated with a younger audience. As far as body horror scores go, The Substance stands out as a bold, innovative fusion of classical dread and modern electronic chaos. Benjamin Wallfish's score for Alien: Romulus had a haunting task, honoring the legendary musical legacy of the Alien franchise while carving out a unique identity for this new installment. The result is a tense, atmospheric, and deeply unsettling score that blends eerie orchestral textures with brooding, electronic elements. Wallfish pays tribute to the franchise's past by weaving in echoes of Jerry Goldsmith's Alien score and James Horner's Aliens, but he also expands the sonic palette with distorted synths, manipulated voices, and unsettling percussive pulses that make the film's claustrophobic horror even more visceral. The soundtrack does a fantastic job of reflecting both the raw terror of the xenomorphs and the emotional arcs of the film's characters. Wallfish uses distinct musical identities for different figures, haunting choral arrangements for moments of fleeting hope, creeping dissonance for scenes of dread, and brutal industrial soundscapes whenever the horror reaches its peak. Some critics found the electronic elements a bit overwhelming at times, but that's exactly what makes the score so effective. It's meant to disorient, to keep you on edge. Overall, Alien Romulus delivers a worthy addition to the Alien musical canon, balancing nostalgia with innovation in a way that feels both terrifying and fresh. John Paesano's score for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, a favorite franchise on this channel, continues the franchise's tradition of musically mirroring the evolution of its world. While Michael Giacchino's previous Ape scores were powerful in their own right, Paesano takes a fresh approach, blending orchestral grandeur with unsettling electronic textures and unusual instruments like detuned pianos and oil drums. The result is a soundtrack that feels both primal and futuristic, a perfect fit for a film about a next chapter of ape civilization. There are clear nods to Jerry Goldsmith's original 1968 score, but Paesano builds upon the past with three recurring themes: a sweeping discovery theme, a tribal Eagle Clan theme, and a personal, emotional Noah's theme. The music plays a crucial role in shaping the film's world, distinguishing the different cultures within the story while heightening the tension of key confrontations. There's an evolving complexity to the score, mirroring Noah's journey as he discovers more about his world and his place in it. While some critics felt that the score wasn't as instantly iconic as the previous entries in the franchise, most praised its emotional depth and seamless blend of old and new musical ideas. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is all about legacy, survival, and discovery, and Paesano's score delivers on all fronts, cementing itself as a worthy addition to the franchise's rich musical history. And finally, Chris Bauer's score for The Wild Robot is a beautiful fusion of the mechanical and the organic, just like the story itself. This 2024 animated adaptation of Peter Brown's novel required a soundtrack that could balance the cold precision of its robotic protagonist, Oz, with the warmth and natural world she slowly learns to call home. And Bowers absolutely delivers. The orchestral elements are lush and sweeping, with electronic textures and synth-based motifs subtly remind us of Roz's mechanical nature. The real magic, though, lies in the inventive percussion. Chromatically tuned glass bottles, teacups, wooden planks, and cowbells create a soundscape that feels handmade, delicate, and deeply connected to the world of the film. The score revolves around four main themes: Roz, Bright Bill, Think, and family, each evolving as the characters do. The contrast between Roz's rigid, synthetic theme and the more organic, emotionally rich motif for the creatures around her make her transformation all the more poignant. The music enhances both the film's quiet, reflective moments and its thrilling action sequences, seamlessly tying it all together. Critics widely praised Bauer's work, drawing comparisons to John Powell's How to Train Your Dragon and Thomas Newman's more whimsical compositions for WALL-E. His ability to blend emotional depth with innovation earned him a nomination for Best Original Score at the 96th Academy Award, cementing The Wild Robot as a standout achievement in animated film music. So that's my roundup of sci-fi soundtracks of the 2020s so far. Did I miss any of your favorites? Leave a comment. I'd love to chat about soundtracks with you. And be sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell. Next time, I'll cover sci-fi TV soundtracks, everything from The Twilight Zone and the original Star Trek to its many other spin-offs, Space 1999, Battlestar Galactica, both versions, The X-Files, and so many more. It'll be a big video. In the meantime, keep collecting, keep listening to the wonderful world of film music.